Episode 15, Seattle Seahawks. 12 men are here, and with them, one big fan. So, how do I feel about my Seahawks this year? How do I feel about them for the future? And what's happened in the offseason for the Seahawks? Let's find out, shall we? So, before the start, I wanted to acknowledge Pete Carroll for what he's done for this organization. And quite frankly, for what he's done for me, because he was a head coach when I started to watch NFL. He was a head coach, obviously, when I started to watch Seahawks and became a fan. And he was a huge part. Extremely energetic. Like, I wouldn't say always positive, but he looked always positive. Absolute, football geek. He absolutely adores football. He loves football. Incredible stamina for his age. I mean, he's 10 times fitter than me, and I'm 40 years younger than him. I'm just gonna miss him. I'm not going to lie. This is sad for me. That's also what this picture tries to represent, kind of shifting towards modern era of Seahawks football. Because, Pete represents more of that older era, older thinking, let's say, and bringing Mike McDonald kind of is in a way as big of a shift as you can go through in terms of old versus new. He is one of the youngest head coaches, I think, behind Jared Mayer in the league. So we're shifting from second oldest to the second youngest, and he would be the oldest one if he stayed, because of Belichick ending his tenure with Patriots. So thank you, Pete Carroll. I believe he will stay with football as in whatever capacity. I'm kind of sad it's probably not going to be with the Seahawks, as things are pointing out to that direction. But boy, do I envy almost like any young player that kind of meets you, that will have the pleasure of talking or be lectured by a person with such a huge passion for the sport. So Pete, thank you very much. Good luck, good health, and hopefully see you sometimes with whether it's going to be some college football team or as part of the Seahawks organization in some capacity. And it's going to be weird. It's really going to be weird not watching him running up and down the sideline, chewing his gum. Bit of nostalgia just coming true. But let's focus on what's new. Let's focus on this offseason, and we start with the draft. And you can call me biased, but I absolutely loved this draft. We start with Byron Murphy, and kind of similar to what the Colts have. Like when you are picking as number 16 and you want to pick a defensive player, and you get to pick anyone but Latu because he was just picked by the Colts, it's really hard to make a wrong pick. And I think Byron Murphy is absolutely worth this selection. Again, a guy that was about that top 10, top 12 mark for me, so I do think he's still at this position. And he is actually a great fit for the defensive line of the Seahawks. Really a guy that can emerge as a superstar for this unit, and one of the pieces that new head coach Mike McDonald should have a blast to work with. So really happy about this one. Perhaps as draft night I was not as happy, but as I was looking through his tape, as I was watching some of the analysis on him in more depth, I'm really sure that this is really the right pick for the Seahawks. And then it continued with Christian Haynes, because the second round pick was I'm not going to say wasted, but was spent for Leonard Williams in an attempt to push last season. That attempt really failed. We didn't even get to play in the playoffs, so it was a hefty price to pay for Leonard Williams and almost not getting him back. But at the end of the day, he is back, and that pick was, I would say still too high, but we got something back in terms of Leonard Williams. He is a good player. Not necessarily a special one that I would be super comfortable to spend second round pick for. But let's just focus on the draft, and then third round came and Christian Haynes was picked by the Seahawks. And I cannot help myself but give this another A+. Why? Well, first of all, I think it's a steal. I had him as in that range of 50 to 60. That's where he should most likely come off the board. So getting him like 25 places after that is a steal in my opinion. So almost a round, and especially like when we talk early rounds, that matters. And also, like, what's the Seahawks' weakest position? Offensive line by a country mile. So getting a player that is a huge need for you, that I would say can, as early as the season, compete for a starting job and has huge potential, while like getting him as a steal, I cannot give you anything less than A+. I really like this pick. So, and also like it's a position of value kind of in modern day NFL, given the amount of money that were thrown into this position in free agency. So everything just fits for Christian Haynes and this pick, and as a Seahawks fan, so far, really good. Then with Tyrese Knight, I'm a little bit skeptical. I just don't necessarily see that athletic upside that I would like to have with my linebackers, and really, you know, have him develop for 2 years, learn the position in NFL, and then start. Because I just don't think he offers that much of an upside for this position. Though it's adequate in terms of draft value, like a little bit early for me. Also, I felt like there were still players that would be an immediate impact for this team, but for like forward thinking, and he most likely will get a chance like next year. This is not a bad pick, so C+, kind of like not super happy, but still good enough pick. Then AJ Barner, again, it's a touch too early, but I do understand the need for him, because you've let go Colby Parkinson, you've let go especially Will Disley, and AJ Barner is just a huge, almost like your sixth offensive lineman out there. He's exceptional blocker. He just doesn't offer too much with his hands, like in terms of catching the ball, but kind of need that position, and really Seahawks with only kind of Noah Fant being really reasonable weapon for them in terms of tight ends, getting potential, you know, like a player that will have like 200, 300 snaps and will provide you value as early as year one. Getting that with this type of late pick is good enough for me. Though, like I said, I would prefer some other options. And then we come back to better parts of the draft, at least in my opinion, Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James. Super happy for both these guys to get into Seahawks uniform. I had similar grades for them around the 3rd to 4th round, so get them this late, it's really exceptional, and it just really fits kind of similar approach to what perhaps Bears have, what perhaps, I mean, in a way, Colts have, but I would say Bears are most of the model here, like Seahawks as well. And it's, let's really have a young cornerback room with guys that we invested in or already proven themselves, so Jalen Johnson and Damon Witherspoon, then have some playmaking ability, here it provides by Tarek Woolen, and then the depth, well, let's fill it out with really good prospects, and let this room be, one, very cheap, because Seahawks cornerback room can be super cheap, yet top 5 in the league, like as early as late of the season. Like that's a huge luxury to have for a position of need. So getting these two guys, both of them late, both of them for a position that's valued in the NFL, and they don't necessarily have to start, but have definitely a potential to get into the lineup and provides you with really nice depth. Very good job. Very good job. Then Sata or Laumea. Yeah, I mean, when you look at these grades, you might say, well, he's a Seahawks fan. Well, I am, let's be honest. But it's not like I have very much of liking for John Snyder's drafts, really, as of late. I mean, with like exception of 2022, I really like that one. But last year was kind of some of the picks I really didn't feel were that good. But with Satamulauma, again, I think you are getting a potential starter in like a couple years time. Really good physical prospect that, once again, I think should have been off the board. To me, he was like early fourth rounder, so you are getting him like kind of middle to late fifth round. Yeah, that's really great. And also for a position of need, because, well, 2 years ago, as the Seahawks fans, we were kind of, wow, we just found our franchise left tackle and our franchise right tackle in Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. They had really nice rookie season, they came to league together, and we're like, wow, that's good. But, well, Charles Cross last year, he dealt with some injuries, and he took a step back, in my opinion. He was not as good as he was in rookie season. And with Abraham Lucas, he kind of went 2 steps back, as well as kind of kneeling because there are supposed to be some chronic issues that may not be able to be cleared in the long term for Abraham Lucas, unfortunately. And he's still on an injury list. When asked about him, Coach McDonald was really kind of avoiding the answer, so it really seems like he's not going to be ready to start even week 1, despite having like almost 10 months of trying to get healthy. So that's a big problem. So can you count on these 2 guys to actually be your franchise left and right tackle? Well, at this point it sounds unlikely, although we would still love that. And in that case, Tata Moama in the future, or even as of right now, can provide you that upside. Like, is a good starter in him for the future? Well, yes, possibly even better. So again, position of need, position of value, and a steal. Like, what can I give you other than 8? Other than not 8, but other than 8. Mike Gerald, nothing really to say about him. Now let's talk about offense, and it's going to be run by Ryan Grubb instead of Shane Walden, who was kind of run out of the town, just to land one of the dreamiest position for offensive coordinator with the Bears. So interesting thinking, Bears. But, I would say we are happy to be free of Shane Walden. And Ryan Grubb, you might say, well, you rank Shane Walden I think slightly better than I do Ryan Grubb. Well, yes, because I've seen Shane Walden coach the offensive side of the ball. I've seen him call plays, and it's not disastrous. Like, God forbid, he was not like super bad. It just wasn't the right fit in my opinion. And we have not seen this with Ryan Grubb. So he's coming unproven, and for that, like, I cannot give you super high grade, but from every thing that I've heard about this guy, read or looked through what he was doing in terms of college and what he's done, though he was never like in full range of an offense, so it's really kind of a step, like 2 steps forward. Not only he was never like a sole play caller, or he didn't have like a head coach that was not say offensively focused, to jump from college to NFL and to sole play calling. Like, this could really go wrong. Like, this could go wrong with Ryan Grubb. But still, I think it's a good hire, and we just have to wait and see what Ryan Grubb is going to be in the grand scheme of NFL. Now, what does this guy have to work with? And we start with the quarterback room, which should be Geno Smith starting. There are some concerns because he's asking for a new contract, and I think Seahawks are kind of smart to not give him one, because like, he's a starter for 2 years since Russell Wilson left, and the first year looked really exceptional and then kind of fell off. So combined, he was like 12th best QB in that season, but it was more like the 5th best and then 20th best. Like, when you split it like first half of the year and second half of the year. And last season was some of the injuries. He was dealing with some of the injuries, and the line play in front of him was really, really poor. Also, like Shane Waldron, I don't think he was necessarily doing the great job. So the fact that he was last season more towards that 18th best QB in the league, 1920, something like that, doesn't necessarily speak about like detriment or about his fall. It's also really good that despite of the circumstances, he was able to maintain still very solid level of play. So in my eyes, he is a good starter, but is he something more than that? He could be. I think it's still in him. Like, you know, like he's been in the league for a long time, but this is realistically like his third year as a starter after a super long time. So there might still be some untapped potential with him. You know, with better line play, with new coordinator. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he looks as borderline top 10 QB this year with the weaponry and hopefully with better play around him. But I am for once super glad that Seahawks are not getting pushed towards the corner and like, yeah, we need to give you long-term contract or we need to give you significantly more money. So you are getting a good pay, Gino. You have really, I think, a chance to again bet on yourself. And then maybe we can talk about like 3 years, 120-ish million, something like that. Why not? But as of right now, if the decision was like Gino tries to hold out, if Seahawks don't give him a new contract, I would say, well, hold out. Because this is not necessarily a season where we are pushing for Super Bowl. I don't think the expectations are very high. And rather than jeopardizing our future, let's maybe see, or like, I don't know, we kind of know that Sam Howell is probably not the answer, but I would rather kind of slightly sack the season rather than be forced to deal on kind of bad terms in a way. But Gino like deserves to be paid, but I think he deserves to be paid exactly what he's getting paid, not anything more. And I think his play for the Seahawks justifies that, not necessarily more. So if you want to get better play, show me that what you were first time or first part of 2020 season is who you are. Then let's talk. So until that, I'm sorry. Like, I would rather not play you than be forced to sign a long-term contract that is like way too much money. For somehow, like we talked about that with the Spencer Rattler pick for the Saints, when I was like, I'm kind of envied that Seahawks did not do this pick, but I kind of understand why they didn't, because they're like, well, somehow has a starting experience. He is kind of that backup type, let's say similar to James Winston. Like, he's going to go out there, he will put the ball in the harm's way, and if you flip a good somehow week, well, he can deliver you a win. But you don't want to rely on him as a starter. Is there a chance that he will still figure it out because he's not exactly the oldest prospect? Yes. Essentially, you treat him as a cheap, quite like high variance backup option, which is absolutely fine in my opinion. Then let's shift to running back room, and Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. I think they are combined slight plus for this offense. I might have them ranked a little lower than perhaps some others out there would be. Like, I think for Kenneth Walker, I do not necessarily expect him to emerge as anything more than he is right now. I think this is kind of his ceiling. He played enough snaps in NFL, so if there was a huge leap forward, I think it would have happened by now. With Zach Charbonnet, definitely there is a potential, and I think as of right now he's already really close to being like a good starter. He had a decent enough rookie season, but still, I want to see more before I move him to this tier. I think they are a really good combination. Kenneth Walker is a guy who will always try to give you more, and sometimes because of that he will give you less, because he won't take what's there and he will try to outsmart things, which because of his athleticism, sometimes this doesn't work. Then that's where you have Zach Charbonnet, who will kind of always deliver you, exactly what is out there, what is blocks for, and you kind of hope that in year 2 he will be able to deliver you on average that yard more on this type of runs. So really good combo. I think overall slight plus for the Seattle offense, but not necessarily something that like opponents' defenses are like super scared of. Like it's plus room because you have really good starter, somewhere around 15 to 18 best running back in the league in Kenneth Walker, and you have really good like mesh brother with him and Zach Charbonnet with the potential to be even better than he is right now. As eventually, I think they could set up to be important start duo that is kind of top 10-ish, top 8-ish in a league, or like as a duo even like top 5, but as a room it's more of a top 10, top 8 because like having one elite starter on this position and let's say some good backup type is usually more valuable than having 2 really good players. That's just the nature of the position in my opinion. Then let's move towards wide receivers. And we start with DK Metcalf. Like, if there is one reason why I'm not going to be missing Pete Carroll, because like DK Metcalf is kind of the successor of Pete in a way. He has a huge personality. Obviously, there is that famous photo with him like having his shirt down and Pete coming into the office, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put my shirt down as well. So what are you saying, DK? Well, you think you have a better body than me at 70 years old? So yeah, I think he provides you enough, not the distraction, but enough fun in terms of even like his sideline, his persona, that it kind of eases the pain from losing that with Pete Carroll, though you will still miss that. And in terms of his on-field play, he's not in like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, or even DJ Moore tier, in my opinion. To me, he is like Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin. You know, these guys are missing just a little something to get on that creme de la creme, but still you are super happy to have them as your number 1 guy. Compliment to him is Tyler Lockett, one of my favorite players in the NFL. Always positive, always smiling. If you haven't read his poetry, well, I haven't either, but I know that he writes poetry, so it's a really interesting hobby for an NFL player. And as far as I'm concerned, he actually published some books that did quite okay, so kudos to you, Tyler. In terms of his performance on the field, like the age starts to show on him a little bit, but I would say that he is like super smart player that won't necessarily like make a huge downfall. I would say he will end up here like either it's like 50-50 between important starter and good starter. I don't necessarily see him coming back to amazing status who he would definitely once held for me. But still, really nice player or wide receiver number 2. And when you put Jason Smith-Njigba into this room, who is definitely a guy with a ton of potential that can eventually overcome Tyler Lockett, you are not worried about this room at all. JSN, his rookie season, it was good enough. It left a lot to be desired from what type of prospect he was hyped to be. But if there is anyone who is like super happy that Jay Waldron is in here, it's JSN. Because it just didn't feel like he can find the right usage for him. So I'm really excited to see JSN this year's version of the offense. And if you are looking for a guy that might really break out this season, I would say JSN should be on that list. Then in terms of backups, let's start with Laviska Shenault. He provides you some experience. He's been in the league for a couple of years. If he has to start for you, something went wrong, because to me he's wide receiver number 5. And wide receiver number 4 is fan favorite and a guy that, oh my god, I'm super happy that we have Jake Bobo. I mean, like, he won't show on the highlights in terms of his catches. You might see him on the highlights with his blocking, because he blocks his ass off. He's just like that never-ending ball of energy that, you know, like he sees opponent that is 30 pounds stronger than him. Like that is, 12 centimeters bigger than him. And he was like, yeah, challenge accepted, let's fight, let's go for it. He will play his ass off, as every play is his last. It reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Pacheco, where the running style that he's usually described was he plays like he wants to punish the ground. I would say Jake Bobo is kind of similar in terms of his wide receiver skill set as a blocker. Like, do I see any crazy upside with him as like in terms of threat to catch the ball? No. Like, if he becomes a decent starter, good. But oh my god, you just love to see him out there. He brings energy, he brings toughness, and I think he partly is a huge inspiration for this room. And he's total fan favorite. I don't think there's any single Seahawks fan that doesn't like Jake Bobo. And I'm super happy that we found him kind of undrafted in last year draft. No, I can't say we found him in draft because he went undrafted. So Jake Bobo, I wish you nothing but the best. I hope he can carve for himself out kind of nice career in terms of NFL. He's already 26 years old, so he kind of is who he's going to be for his career. But I would say with his attitude towards the game, he can get like 5-6 years of NFL play, nice amount of money, sometimes of like 1 year, $3 million type of deal when he ends his rookie contract, and find himself living and he absolutely deserves that. So rooting for you, man. Go JJ. Bobo. Now let's move to the tight end room, and it's pretty much from 3 Musketeers last year. Noah Fant, Kobe Parkinson, and Will Disley. They were kind of essential for Shane Waldron because he wanted to run 12 personnel and 13 personnel more often than pretty much anyone in the league. Now it's much more. We brought one of those guys back, the one that we believe has the most potential. We paid him quite nicely in Noah Fant. Then Farrell Brown had really kind of his breakout season last year with Patriots, 40 years old. So some of the signings that Seahawks actually made look like, well, we checked PFF grades, and those guys that are cheap but looked good last year, we've signed them. So Farrell Brown is kind of that. I mean, as your tight end too, if you are not using 12 personnel way too much, I'm okay with that. AJ Barner, we already talked about him. He's pretty much like extension of your offensive line. Kind of nothing to talk about the room with Noah Fant. Having potential to still develop. Like sometimes it takes a little bit longer for tight ends. This is still like his 6th season or 5th season in the NFL, so there's still potential for him to become somewhat better than he is right now. As of right now, this room is slightly under average, but should get the job done. Let's move towards the offensive line, where a lot of people believe that Seahawks' hopes for this season will burn. We already talked about Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. It was not pretty for either of them last year. I had to lower Abraham Lucas towards just a good backup type of grade, and we are not still sure if he is going to be able to play almost ever. Like, is there a potential that he played his last snaps in NFL? Yeah, like there could be something really wrong with his knee that will prevent him to play. Is it likely? No. There were some positive signs like Pete Carroll saying, yeah, this is something genetic, deteriorating, and then was like, no, we can actually clean this up. But it's 10 months and he's still on injury list, so it might be much more I might lean probably more towards like Pete Carroll's side of the story than what is presented right now, though I would absolutely hate that for Abe to happen. Charles Cross, let's just hope that with full offseason, being healthy, and hopefully having a better play next to him, he can kind of follow on his year 1 development and essentially become a franchise left tackle that I would say is absolutely within the reach, within the realm of possibility for him, but he needs to improve for that. In terms of backups for this tackle duo, George Fent, I absolutely love the signing. This is exactly who I think you sign in your dreams when you have two young tackles that have dealt with injuries, have dealt with inconsistencies. You can sign a proven veteran that is probably even better than one of these guys. I would say George Fent is slightly better than Abe Lucas as of right now, but he kind of understands he's brought here as an insurance policy, as a backup that should get a ton of snaps because of those injuries or inconsistencies. And if he does, he will step up and he will play, and he will just be a minor problem for you. So one of my favorite signings. Stone Forsythe, Mike Gerald. We kind of talked a bit about some of the other options they have. For what it's worth, Seahawks were like, yeah, we really struggled last season. We essentially had to put like 12, 15, whatever amount of different offensive line combination in. So let's just prepare for that, because that can still happen, because we don't have talent and we have injury problems. But bring those guys in as early as training camp, to at least when we will put them out there, they've played with the guy next to him rather than they don't even know their name. So they filled the room with bodies. I will definitely say that. And in terms of interior, this graphic is outdated, but I wanted to show it to you instead of not instead of making a new one, but projected what was projected and what actually happened. So Laken Tomlinson, Anthony Bradford, as of right now, are still most likely the starting guard duo for this team. Let me just check this out. If nothing changed there. Yeah, nothing changed there. It seems like Bradford won starting right guard job over Christian Haynes, and it's not necessarily a bad news. There's still some perhaps untapped potential with Bradford, but he probably gives you more of a floor before Christian Haynes adapts to NFL level and inevitably takes this position, I would say. With Laken Tomlinson, I would say this is similar signing to George Fent. Rather, he's actually set up to play. Like, we would love to have you as a backup. Let's say, unfortunately, you are our starter because we don't have anyone better. But we hope that with some of the players that we brought here, whether through free agency or through draft, there will essentially emerge someone better than you. But as of right now, you are a starter that should give us some, let's say, better play than we had last year, rather than what was really poor offensive line last season. And then they were set up to start Nick Harris, or at least have a camp battle with Oluwatimi. I mean, some of the names are really hard to say for me. But that camp battle kind of started to happening a bit, and then was really put into bed because Seahawks brought Connor Williams, former center of Miami Dolphins, for 1 year, $4 million type of deal. And it's a ridiculously small amount for what Connor Williams is as a player, in my opinion. If you would like to have my grades on him, it's important starter. He was even like second highest graded center last year behind Frank Ragnow. That's where I'm like, yeah, Seahawks were like, PFF, who is available? Is he cheap? Okay, let's sign him. And the reason why Connor Williams was cheap is because he suffered a season-ending injury last year, and he's still kind of, it wasn't sure if he will recover in time to start week 1, which as of right now should be on a plan for him, if I haven't overlooked anything. And he's kind of like, well, I wanted a huge contract. Because of the injury, nobody is going to give me one. So who wants center for reasonable price tag? For me, it's definitely reasonable price tag for his quality. And fortunately for the Seahawks, he picked us. And I would say immediately he improves this offensive line towards what my grades for them actually are. I would say without him, this line is in like, it doesn't have any plus piece. With him, I would say it does. though having center as your best piece is a bit of a problem, but why I rank them as a D across the board pretty much with Connor Williams, it's, well, there's a lot of depth, and like the floor of those players is not necessarily like super poor. It's kind of, none of them should be like an absolute shit show out there, though that right side with Anthony Bradford and Abe Lucas could look like one, but at least from left side to center you are set with pretty reasonable offensive line play, and like I said, you have a shit ton of option to replace those guys if things go south. Here there are those backup options: Christian Haynes, Satoa Lamua and Oluwatimi. Really, from these, I would say Christian Haynes will be a starter as early as end of this year, and with Satoa I would not be surprised if, in case that Seahawks are not necessarily going anywhere, he is going to get some starts. There's some potential for him to like slide maybe even to slide inside, or if Abe Lucas is injured and Noah Fant is still out there but we are not playing for much, I would really not put it behind Satuma to actually start some games this season. So I'm reasonably optimistic about this offensive line. It's kind of similar approach to what Steelers have done, though they have slightly better O-line than the Seahawks do. It's like, yeah, we understand we have a lot of problems there. Let's just spend savvy draft capital to ensure that we have at least potential starters in terms of our backups and young backups, and let them just push for the position. And it can has like two outcomes, or three, let's say. One is they will push our starters to play better. Good. We will have better play from our offensive line, as much as having that future secured. Two, they will overcome the starters, and for better or worse, they will start to develop on the field. And three, they will just suck and they will not push on the starters. But for all of those prospects, I would say both here and with the Steelers, they picked the right guys to optimize that the biggest chance are one or two will happen. So that's the offense for the Seahawks. O-line needs to be serviceable for this to work, and I think it should be. Let's shift towards defense, and Mike McDonald comes here as, like, if sometimes you can say that I'm a bit too strict on some of the players, that they might deserve a better grade. For example, Zach Charbonnet. With Mike McDonald, I'm coming super high on him. Like, I think as of right now, he is already one of the best defensive-minded head coach in the league, and overall a guy to, let's say, teach the defense, to develop players. I love this signing. I think this is the best coach that was out there. I would say, you can definitely talk about Jim Harbaugh. You know what I'm doing, right? It's not Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, it's Jim Harbaugh. Jim and John Harbaugh. You know me and my first name. I needed to check. Some would say, well, Jim Harbaugh is better. I do prefer Mike McDonald. Let's put it this way. But nothing against Jim Harbaugh. I think he's going to be successful with the Chargers. But for what we needed, I would say we have defensive talent. We couldn't make it work. Now I believe we have a guy that will. And what he has to work with. In terms of defensive line, edge pieces in Boya Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu. Uchenna, obviously his last year got shortened with the injuries, unfortunately. But he should be back full speed. And with both of these guys, I think you are quite happy. Neither of them necessarily provides you with super great upside. Boya Mafe can, I would say, still develop into, I would say, a player like Montez Sweat. I don't see him like ever reaching status of Myles Garrett or anyone like super premium pass rusher, but that second to second and half tier in terms of edge pieces. I think Boyamafe could definitely be that. Ocean also, I think he's kind of what he is. He will settle as a good starter for a long haul. I don't see him getting better. I don't necessarily see him getting worse. As a backup, Darrell Taylor, he's kind of a pass rush specialist. He is really putrid run defender. But as a guy that you will put out there on some especially third down situations, he can deliver you some nice plays. As a third piece, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. Overall, there are definitely much better edge groups out there, but this one again should be the one that gets the job done, and in case of Moebafe, actually has a really intriguing upside. And then we go inside and we have to start a conversation with Byron Murphy, who immediately becomes like by far the highest upside player that this defensive line has, because I do see an elite starter potential in him. And as of right now, next to Leonard Williams, who is going to be out there next to him, he will be a starter for this team. I would say that most likely they will go with 5-man front: Damon Jones, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Boyamafe, and Uchenna Nwosu. And with this combination, you are struggling a bit with run defense, but Byron Murphy, unlike some other rookies, you do expect him to hold his own against the run, though we kind of seen this not working very well. Like Mazi Smith last year was really poor against the run, though he was kind of broad, so this should be a strong suit of his game. But I trust that Byron Murphy can hold his own and should be able to absolutely learn from these veterans, and really fills this group quite nicely, because in Leonard Williams you have a guy that again essentially is kind of that tier 3 of he's not the Dexter Lawrence out there. He's not necessarily like the first Buckner, but he is in that third tier with guys like, Jonathan Allen, Robert Stewart, like really a guy that you hope there is someone next to him that is better, or if there is as good as a player of him, you are really cooking. And Byron Murphy has that potential, so there is really a lot of good things that you can say about this interior, which for a couple of years was just not the case. Seahawks practically was like, yeah, we sucked at this position. Damon Jones was supposed to be the answer. He did not necessarily deliver, despite having quite a nice contract signed with Seahawks. Okay, let's throw a second round pick on it with Leonard Williams, and just for a good measure, Byron Murphy is out there. Let's just figure this room out for a foreseeable future, and they did just that. Now let's talk about linebackers, and again, I'm not getting tired of talking about linebackers in the league, but it's just another, do they like copy paste this room? Because it just really feels like this. You have capable starter in Jerome Baker. You have, Tyler Dodson is kind of, PFF 90.2, let's sign him. That was a complete outlier, but on almost 600 snaps. So maybe there is something with Tyler Dodson that, if he obviously will be as good as he was last year, we are cooking, but nobody kind of expects that. And then you have your development type in Tyrese Knight. So it's absolutely generic linebacker room for a league. Like, yeah, in grand scheme of things, they are slight liability, but nothing really bad. So yeah, copy paste that for almost like 15 linebackers room are pretty much almost the same. Quite good enough starter, a guy that you're like, okay with, and then either developmental backup or some solid backup to just, in case of that second guy is out, you have a guy that should replace him with not a lot of lost. And if the first guy goes down, it's like, that's a bit of a problem, but it's the linebackers, we can live with that. 15 rooms are just like that. So I'm sorry, Jerome Baker, I'm sorry, Tyler Dodson, that I don't talk about you that much, but it's it's kind of the same. Good enough, good enough. And let's move from that. Let's move towards safeties. And we start with Pro Bowler Julian Love. No, Pro Bowl was a bit rich for him. He's kind of from an afterthought of this safety trio, or like the safety duo should have been Quandrix and Jamal Adams. And Julian Love was kind of supposed to be a really good backup for them. And together they should have been one of the best safety trios in the league, if not the best. Well, as of right now, Julian Love is the only one that is in here, though if you checked the financial books for the Seahawks, Jamal Adams and Quandrix left their kind of hefty prices in terms of that cap money hit. But Julian Love is here. He is a good player. He is not spectacular. He is not a Pro Bowler. No, he is not like top 5 safety in the conference, or even like top 3, top 4. He's just not that. But he's a really good player. Like, I'm super happy to have him. And when we talk about what we actually have behind him, that's why I'm ranking this group as a D. Like, I just, it's kind of similar to what we have as linebackers, Rashawn Jenkins, Kevin Wallace, Kobe Bryant. Like, really good enough starter, kind of my option, some nice backups option, but like for safeties, this is not standard across the league, right? Like, compared to other teams, this is under average safety room, and not necessarily something that should sink you. It should not be a huge liability, but it's a minus for this team. Like, they definitely, like when you are listing Seahawks strengths, safeties are not going to be there. They are going to be a weakness of this team, but they don't have potential to be as much of a weakness as the offensive line was last year, or even as if they could be this season. So they should get the job done, but do you expect them to be in that class, in a kind of 23rd, 24th in terms of quality of the safety play? But the conversation turns much better when we talk about cornerbacks, and we have to start with Devon Witherspoon. Boy oh boy, this was exciting rookie season. I will go as high and say he's already top 5 corner in the league. Like, I know you say I'm crazy, maybe, but like, what was there that you need to see more from this man? Because he can play slot, he can play outside. For his size, he is actually a really good run defender. Okay, could he get more interceptions? Is he as an elite of a playmaker? Well, I mean, not even Sauce Gardner had a lot of interceptions last year. In fact, I think he had 0, right? So, like, interceptions are partly luck, partly you cannot get them when you are not being targeted, which, with shutdown corners usually happens. And also, they are kind of a mantra of taking a risk. And when your team doesn't necessarily is good in terms of your defense, should you be taking a risk, or should you take a really nice positive play that's out there just by preventing the completion? I would say the second is probably what you need. Obviously, depends on the state of the game. So I'm super excited about that one. I think he absolutely returned the value of the pick almost already. Obviously, you need, like in terms of his development, if he stays what he was last season, I think you are absolutely okay with that. But the scary thing is, this was his first year, and now here comes Mike McDonald. I won't say that he can become as good as Sauce Gardner, but as early as late this year, if I will call him number 2 corner in the league, I don't think I will be crazy. So I absolutely love this guy. I think the sky is the limit, and then there is also over the sky in a way. But boy oh boy, am I happy to have this man on the roster. And the good news doesn't stop there, because Rick Woolen, first season, he stormed into the league, had a shit ton of interceptions. Second year, he was actually better in terms of coverage. He always absolutely shit in run defense. He just cannot tackle anyone. So That's something that, got him benched for a game or two last season. But if he just isn't absolutely horrible in that situation, or if they just can scheme around him to not be exposed towards that, as your number 2, still in that rookie deal, still just entering you free, happy days, happy days, happy days. And then it should have been a battle between Trey Brown and Michael Jackson before those young guys like Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James kind of show up for their opportunity. As of right now, I think the clear thinking is they've seen enough with both DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett that Seahawks traded away. It's just happened today that they traded away Michael Jackson and they brought Michael Barrett from Panthers. And that's a guy that was drafted in 7th round this year, 240th pick, almost 25 years old. So kind of weird trade, but I would say it clearly says, well, we just would not use Michael Jackson. Thank you very much for your services, and you should be much more equipped to get to the field with Carolina, who actually has a need for cornerbacks. We are super happy with our 5, Trey Brown, DJ James, Nehemiah Pritchett, fighting for that third spot, and Rick Woolen and Devon Witherspoon as our 2 mainstays of that secondary and of this cornerback room. And also, if there's one positive thing to say about Michael Barrett, it's he comes from Michigan. So obviously with Mike McDonald's connection to that school, he already worked under Mike McDonald. I think they've even met at Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, because he obviously comes to a league as a player that spent a lot of time at college level. So for a room that's kind of, they're getting a guy that's probably also, but at least someone that should know Mike McDonald year in, year out, and should make the roster. So I think it's kind of a nice gesture towards Mike Jackson. Maybe they save some money with letting go of his contract, as well as getting a player towards this room that kind of makes it just slightly more injury prone, because it's not like you expect miracles from Michael Barrett. Nothing really positive I can say about him, beside the fact that Mike McDonald knows what he's getting from this guy, or what type of guy he's getting. So that was your Seahawks roster breakdown. It kind of is a bit weird because partly of this show, partly of some other things that were kind of beyond my control, I wasn't able to follow Seahawks as much as I would like to this offseason, and maybe because of that, I'm feeling I'm super eager to watch them play, first of all, and second of all, I just don't have that many expectations from this season. I'm like, maybe I can finally enjoy Seahawks game, because if you are a fellow Seahawks fan, you know that if your heart rate is not 200 during the game, you are watching a different team. Like Seahawks games, especially with Pete Carroll, were always up and down to the last second. And perhaps this year it could be more calmer. I might not lose a year of my life every time I watch them because of what kind of heart rate it requires to watch them too. So it's a weird feeling. I'm excited because there is so many young, interesting pieces. There is a new head coach. There is also the nostalgia from not seeing Pete Carroll. So I'm amuse me Seahawks. I'm prepared to be amused. I'm prepared to enjoy this. And in terms of 4, I think it's just 6 wins. They are good enough in several areas, but the division is brutal. It's probably not the best still in football, but it's one of the harder. And it's those offenses that the Seahawks will have to face are nasty. And in case that the pass rush kind of doesn't figure it out, which can happen, or the run defense is not as improved as we would hope so, they could really have a way with this team, because as good as this cornerback room is, if any QB has a lot necessary amount of time, he can dissect pretty much anyone. So I would be absolutely sad if they went like 1-5 in the division, but I would not be shocked. So I would say 4 or 6 wins. This is a good enough team to make that happen. And in terms of upside, I think around 10 wins, flirting with that wildcard spot. I don't think they are necessarily equipped to win this division. I think San Francisco is just a runaway favorite, and Rams offense is really really scary, and I would not put it past Arizona to actually make some noise this season. So I think 10 wins is reasonable upside. One playoff game, probably losing that one, Lions. Yes, that could be a first round matchup that I can envision for this team. But is this year necessarily about, winning anything? No. It's about transitioning to new coach, handing him the reins, let him implement his defensive guruness in a way towards this defense, and let Devon Witherspoon be second best corner in the league, and just figure out what you have in Geno Smith going forward. I think if that happens, if you can see Mike McDonald handwriting on this defense, if you see Devon Witherspoon, Rick Woolen, and all the young pieces, JSN, Zach Charbonnet develop, or Byron Murphy as well, and you figure out if Geno Smith is your guy for the future, I would call it a successful season, whether you have 8 wins or 9. It's like, I obviously, as a fan, love our guys to win, but from perspective of this podcast, of this show, that's where I think the focus is clearly on. And in terms of future for the Seahawks, there's a lot of good young pieces that have a potential to hit. They've addressed most positional needs with the young talent, so you see that upside. And I would say that even you see in Geno Smith a guy that can be a QB that you will be playing a Super Bowl with. I don't think he will lead you there on his shoulders, and he is very close, or as of right now, he's a guy I would not sign to a big contract. Let's make that clear. I already said that. I would rather kind of save the season rather than sign him up to 3 years, 150 millions. But if he shows enough level of quality towards Kyler Murray, above that top 10 QB, which I think is in him. I've seen it with him, at least 2022 it was there. And what happened last season, I wouldn't strictly put on him. So if he shows that, and this young piece is it, I can see us being contender within a 3-year time span. How likely is that? I would say Seahawks are kind of middle of the pack in terms of how well they are suited up for the future. It's not super bad. They, beside this year, they are not necessarily tight, pushing money down the stretch. Because this year they kind of ripped the bandage on Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs contracts for that. But it's not something exceptional. You don't necessarily have a guy behind the center, and you also, with the exception of Devon Witherspoon, hopefully, you are missing elite player on this roster. And as of right now, we are missing the guy, and I think Devon Witherspoon can be this guy after this season. So it's hard to get to the Super Bowl without this. So I think they are kind of middle of the pack, situated for the future, and I will just enjoy the ride. Winning or losing, I will be Seahawks fan till I die. I don't care. I've chosen this team, and I will stick with them towards any bitter end. If there is any proof that you want of that, I've become Arsenal fan, for those guys who also understand Premier League, 2004. It's not because of unbeaten run, it's because of Tomáš Rosický transfer there, and it was kind of the time where they started to show Premier League in Czech Republic. So I became the fan, and since that point, Arsenal became kind of a joke in a way that everybody was yeah, they cannot win anything. It took about 15 years before we won FA Cup. And to this day, I'm an Arsenal fan. To my heart, my heart is kind of split between Arsenal and Seahawks. And there is some room for Timberwolves and Blue Jackets. But I will enjoy this. Hopefully, if you wanted to measure my heart rate, I would say 2 out of 3 biggest heart rate upsides are with Arsenal or the Seahawks. So let's put it this way. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a bit more emotional for me, but well, it's my guys, it's my Seahawks. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know down in the comments whether you think I'm wrong, whether you think I'm right in terms of this team, and see you with the next one. Bye bye.